Okay, so you've decided to learn a new language, maybe English. You open your browser and bam, it's just apps everywhere, grammar guides, people telling you different things. Start with verbs, no, start with the nouns, just sing songs. It's instant information overload.
Oh, definitely. It's exhausting, isn't it? And, ironically, all that information often just stops people right in their tracks before they even manage hello.
Right. So our mission today is basically a shortcut through all that noise. We've looked at a whole bunch of sources about learning English, specifically for absolute beginners, best practices, how your brain learns, actual routines, and we're just pulling out the essential first steps you need, like right now.
Exactly. And we're doing this because, honestly, the payoff is huge. And it's pretty immediate. English isn't just another language. The research often calls it a key that opens many doors.
Let's unpack that a bit. It gets called the global connector, or I think one source used the term lingua franca. For anyone listening who might not know, what does lingua franca really mean for English today?
It basically means it's the common language, right? The sort of default second language people use all over the world for business, science, travel, diplomacy,
Yeah.
tech especially. And it's not really an accident. The data shows it's tied to history,
Yeah.
economics, US and UK cultural influence. Plus, it just became the standard for software and, well, almost everything online.
Yeah, that's the real sticking point, isn't it? Even if English isn't the main language where you live, if you're looking at university or a job in a big company, or even just figuring out how to use a new gadget, English is often that necessary layer.
Precisely. The digital world pretty much runs on it.
Yeah.
Instructions, tech support, online gaming, coding projects. It's kind of the backbone.
Okay, so we get the why. It's powerful motivation. But where does someone actually start? Like, before we even talk methods, what are the very first words?
You have to strip it right back. Ground zero. Basic functional stuff, simple greetings, hello, how are you, and those phrases that let you introduce yourself. My name is, I am from. Things like that. They give you this immediate little win, a confidence boost. You go from zero to something conversational fast.
Right, establishes who you are. But, okay, as soon as you say those words, you hit maybe the biggest hurdle for English learners: pronunciation. English spelling is famously tricky. How important is getting the sound right early on?
Oh, it's critical. Our sources are really clear on this.
Yeah.
You've got to focus on pronunciation from day one. If you just read and learn spelling first, you risk baking in bad habits.
Mhm.
Uh, Fossilized errors is the term linguists use,
Mm.
and those are incredibly tough to fix later.
So just reading the word isn't enough because you might memorize the spelling but link it in your head to completely the wrong sound.
Exactly right. The research really hammers this home. You need to listen a lot to connect your brain to the actual sounds, the rhythm, the sort of music of English, especially for tricky sounds like the or that little unstressed sound, the schwa, which is everywhere but super confusing if it's not in your first language.
So it's about imitation then. Listen carefully and then immediately try to copy it. Link the sound to actually saying it.
That's the core mechanism, yeah. And once you've got greetings and you're starting to imitate sounds, you need some building blocks. What vocabulary should you focus on in those first few weeks?
Keep it simple. High frequency stuff. Common verbs, the action words like eat, go, come, drink, write. Pair those with everyday nouns, things you see and use. School, book, friend, teacher, home.
And the key tip here is use them straight away, even if it feels clumsy. Don't just learn lists. Say things like, I eat rice, I go to school, she is my friend. Short, simple sentences. That's what builds confidence quickly.
Okay, that leads us nicely into the daily routine idea. We all know that initial burst of enthusiasm fades, right? So consistency has to take over. And the research seems very specific about this. Small, regular practice beats marathon sessions.
Absolutely. Small chunks, done regularly, are way more effective than, say, cramming for hours just once a week. Studies show that consistency is what really makes things stick in your memory, and it stops you from burning out.
Wait, the sources suggest only 30 minutes? That feels kind of low.
Hmm.
What if someone has more time? Do the sources warn against doing too much, or is 30 minutes just the sweet spot?
Good question. 30 minutes is presented as the minimum effective dose. It's that sweet spot for beginners, enough to make progress without feeling totally overwhelmed. If you do have more time, the advice is generally to break it up, maybe another short session later. It's the daily repetition that matters most for memory, not one massive info dump.
Okay, that makes sense. 30 minutes feels achievable, less like a huge chore. So what should those 30 minutes actually involve?
There's a really neat structure, often recommended, the 10-10-10 breakdown. That's 10 minutes of listening, 10 minutes of reading, and 10 minutes of actually speaking or writing.
All right, break that down. 10 minutes of listening. What does that look like in practice?
Could be simple songs, especially if you look up the lyrics later, or maybe slow, clear podcasts made for learners,
Yeah.
ones that tell simple stories. The main thing is trying to understand most of it.
And the reading part. 10 minutes of that.
Yeah, easy stuff again, short stories, beginner news articles. Children's books are actually fantastic for this. Sources mention things like the Oxford Reading Tree series because they use carefully controlled vocabulary, so you're actually reading things you can understand.
Okay, and then the last 10 minutes, the one that's often the hardest, producing the language, speaking or writing.
Right. This is where you maybe talk to yourself or write just a short paragraph, maybe 3 or 4 sentences. Describe your day, your plans. The goal is to retrieve the words you're learning, not just recognize them when you see or hear them.
That ties into this brilliant little cognitive trick the sources mention, which helps make English feel less like homework and more constant. The idea of thinking in English.
Yes. This is such a powerful technique. It keeps your brain switched on to English all the time. It just means mentally describing what's around you or narrating what you're doing. I'm sitting on a chair, the chair is brown. Okay, now I need to make dinner.
So you're constantly using the language internally without the pressure of actually talking to someone else yet.
Exactly. It turns passive learning into active use throughout your day, really speeds up making those connections between concepts and the English words for them. And while you're doing this, that vocabulary discipline is still key. Try to write down maybe 3 to 5 new words each day, and crucially, use them in a sentence right away. If you just write them down and forget them, well, they don't stick.
Let's talk about the big psychological hurdle. Speaking of uses feels the most vulnerable, right? What's the main message from the research for learners who feel shy or scared of making mistakes?
The absolute core message has to be, everyone makes mistakes. Seriously. Even native speakers mess up. It's about communication, not perfection. And honestly, people really respect you for trying to speak their language. You just can't let that fear of imperfect grammar stop you from starting.
So what if you don't have anyone to practice with? That's pretty common at the start. How can you practice speaking alone effectively?
There are a couple of structured ways. First, there's the mirror technique. Literally stand in front of a mirror and talk for maybe 2 minutes a day. Describe your day, your plans, whatever. It helps you get used to seeing yourself speak English and builds muscle memory for the sounds.
Okay. And the second method sounds a bit more clinical, but probably very useful, recording yourself.
Yes. Record your voice while you're speaking, and then this is the important part, listen back. It can feel a bit cringy at first, listening to yourself, but it's so valuable. You'll catch not just word mistakes, but things in your rhythm or intonation, your prosody that you just don't notice while you're focused on getting the words out.
And then, when you are ready to talk to someone else, what does that partner practice look like initially?
You could find a friend who's also learning. Or join one of the many online English groups or apps, or tons of them now. The idea is just short daily chats, maybe 10 minutes. Keep it simple, low stakes, just enough to use what you learned that day without it feeling like a massive performance.
All right, let's pivot to the pitfalls. What are the big mistakes beginners often make when they're rushing to get better? The sources highlighted 3 main ones.
Yeah, number one is definitely rushing and impatience, trying to swallow the entire language too quickly. It just leads to shallow learning. English is huge, right?
Right.
It's always better to go a bit slower, but really let things sink in. Retention over speed every time.
Number 2 is one I think many people fall into, especially if they like rules and textbooks.
Ah, yes. Grammar overload. Focusing only on complex grammar rules without actually, speaking. We've probably all met people like that. They can explain the past, perfect continuous tense, flawlessly, but they freeze up if you ask them how their weekend was.
So you need some grammar, obviously, but balance it. What are the absolute essential grammar points to focus on first versus the stuff you can ignore for now?
Focus on the workhorses. Present simple, present continuous, basic sentence structure, subject, verb, object, articles a and the, simple prepositions like in, on, at. Forget the really complex stuff for now, like all the perfect tenses or the subjunctive mood. That comes later when you're polishing fluency, not when you're just starting.
Got it. And mistake number 3 links back to that fear we talked about.
Exactly. Lack of confidence, you really have to internalize that mantra. Practice makes progress, not perfection. Shifting your mindset that way is absolutely critical.
It really is the difference between staying stuck because you're scared of errors and just starting to move.
Just taking that first step.
Okay, let's talk tools. What should people actually use to help with their reading and listening practice?
Well, beyond the easy books and stories we mentioned, those digital tools can really help structure things. Duolingo is great for making vocabulary and basic sentences feel like a game. Hello English offers more structured lessons, often aimed at specific language backgrounds. And BBC Learning English is just a fantastic resource. Clear, slow news, instructional videos, really good quality stuff.
And what about just consuming media? We mentioned songs, video.
Oh, YouTube is invaluable.
Mhm.
But the key is to use subtitles. English subtitles specifically, not just subtitles in your own language. Seeing the words while you hear them helps connect the sound and spelling, especially for those tricky non-phonetic words. It makes recognizing them much faster.
Okay, so we know how to start. We've got the routine. But learning a language takes time. How do you keep the motivation going for, say, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even longer?
You need a strategy, definitely. And it should revolve around making it fun and setting achievable goals. First, set tiny goals. This week, I'll learn these 5 new words and actually use them. Or I'll read one short story by Friday.
Those small wins give you proof you're actually moving forward. And rewards help too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reward yourself. Maybe watch that English movie you like. Or play a game without switching the language back after you've hit your practice goal for the week. And, importantly, always keep your why in mind. That job, the trip, studying abroad, whatever your reason is, remembering it helps push you through those times when motivation naturally dips.
Yeah, it gives the daily grind some actual meaning. Okay, the big question everyone asks. How long does this actually take? If someone really sticks to that 30 minutes a day, when can they realistically expect to have, like, basic conversations?
The timeline from the research is actually pretty encouraging. If you are consistent with that 30 minutes daily, you can realistically expect to handle basic functional conversations in about 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. That's
Yeah.
actually quite fast. That's powerful to know. Okay, final point then, the academy question. If you can reach basic conversation level in 3 to 6 months studying on your own, should you bother paying for, say, a language school?
Well, you absolutely can learn independently with all the great online resources available now. But an academy, or a formal course, does offer a couple of things that self-study often lacks. One is enforced discipline. Having scheduled classes makes you show up. And the other is structured, personalized feedback, especially on your speaking and writing, from a teacher.
So the academy provides structure and accountability, but the sources seem to suggest you can get to that basic level either way in roughly the same time frame.
Yes, that seems to be the consensus, and that's where you as the learner have to weigh things up. What's more important for you?
So wrapping this all up, what's the core message for someone starting out today? Learning English isn't really about chasing some abstract idea of perfection. It's about getting to a point where you can communicate and just getting a little better each day. Make it a daily habit, a companion almost. Listen, read, speak, and try to actually enjoy the process from the beginning.
Right. And if we tie this back, the data suggests you can get to that conversational stage relatively quickly, whether you go the self-study route or join an academy. Which raises, I think, quite an interesting final thought for you to mull over as you maybe start your first 30 minutes today. When does that external structure, that accountability you get from an academy, become more valuable than the flexibility and personalization you get from learning online by yourself? Especially given that the initial outcome-basic conversation in 3 to 6 months seems achievable either way, something to think about.